Last week I went to my mother-in-law Lucia Castillo's house for a family dinner. It was supposed to be a pleasant evening like any other family gathering. Both my husband Alejandro Castillo and I were excited upon arriving. The atmosphere was warm and cheerful. Everyone was having a good time. After dinner the atmosphere became even more animated. The adults began to drink, relax and enjoy the night. As the night advanced, my mother-in-law Lucia behaved as the perfect hostess, refilling the wine glasses and keeping the good mood alive. At one moment music started and some adults began to dance. Alejandro and I joined, letting ourselves be carried by the fun. I did not realize that my sister-in-law Valeria was right behind me. I was moving to the rhythm of the music and accidentally pushed her. This caused my glass of wine to spill. Before I could react, the wine poured all over her dress. It was a total accident. Valeria let out a scream of horror. I was also wearing a white dress that was now completely soaked in deep red wine. I immediately began to apologize, explaining it had been an accident. But I could see she was furious. Alejandro quickly grabbed napkins and brought them so his sister could try to dry the wine. I kept apologizing, trying to help clean the mess. When she began to yell at me, it was clear she was venting all her frustration. "You're blind," she yelled at me. "You can't see what happens around you. How can you be so clumsy to spill your wine on me?" I kept apologizing over and over, trying to make amends, while she kept calling me careless and stupid for ruining her dress. Then at one moment, helped by the wine she had drunk before, I finally responded. "Really, I am sorry, but I do not have eyes in the back of my head. How was I supposed to know you would be right behind me like a ninja?" Alejandro let out a laugh at my comment while we continued trying to clean her. The idea was to joke a little to release tension, but it had the opposite effect. Valeria became visibly rigid and looked at me with even more fury. The next moment, before I could process what was happening, she struck me hard across the face. The sound echoed and my cheek burned. It was not a light slap, but a really hard one. Everyone fell silent, which made it feel even worse. Valeria kept screaming, "How dare you respond to me? I can be wherever I want. You should have been more careful. I cannot believe you ruined my dress with how stupid you are. Do you even know how much this dress costs? Do you know the brand I am wearing? You cannot even afford something like this." I stood there mortified with all eyes on us. Alejandro did not say a word. He just stood there looking in silence while his sister scolded me in front of everyone. At that moment, my mother-in-law Lucia and father-in-law Don Javier quickly intervened to calm Valeria. Lucia tried to console her gently and take her away to avoid more scandal. But Valeria did not want to know anything. Her voice rose even louder. "This was my favorite dress," she shouted, practically trembling with anger. "It is completely ruined because of her. Look at this stain, it will not come out." Then she turned her head toward me again with fury. "You are going to replace it, and I will make sure you pay every last cent it costs." Her tone became even more acidic as she added, "Although I doubt you can even afford something like this with your pathetic salary." That was what hurt me the most, because she wanted to humiliate me, especially with my salary. To give context, Valeria married a rich man shortly after graduating university. Her husband, Sebastian, is 13 years older than her and 9 years older than Alejandro and me. He is a professional from a wealthy family, which puts her in a very comfortable financial position. Since she married, she has lived a life of luxury and thinks the rest of us are poor. The most ironic thing is her self-identification as a traditional wife. Yes, you heard right, she describes herself as a traditional wife unlike us. She spends a large part of her time making videos about how her purpose in life is to serve her husband and prepare to be a good mother for her future children. For her, being a traditional wife is a pride she wears like a badge. But she sees the rest of the world and other people through a lens of privilege and arrogance. It is ironic because they have so much money, she does not even have to do anything for her husband. The people Sebastian hires do it. It is not like she waits for him with food after a day of work. Sebastian, being the rich man he is, has always given her everything she wants. I understand perfectly that her dress must have been really expensive. Honestly, I felt terrible for spilling wine on it. I really did feel bad. But even though I could have been more careful, I really wonder if my mistake deserved that reaction. Did it justify that she struck me in the face, humiliated me in front of everyone, screamed and insinuated I was poor? Although I was not as rich as her husband, I did quite well in life. That is, I am not poor like she says, although compared to her level of living anyone would be poor by her standards. I tried to tell her this, but she continued with her diatribe and I felt my blood pressure rising. Her voice was getting higher and that was upsetting me. She was very close to my face. While all that was happening I did not realize or did not want to, but I felt my hand move before my brain could react. I struck her back hard. So hard it left her completely silent. Probably mine was even worse than hers. Her cheek turned an intense red. Then I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You can stop screaming for a moment so I can speak. I am going to replace your dress. So stop screaming about how I cannot pay for this. You have never had to spend a cent without someone else paying for it, so who are you to call me poor?" It looked like Valeria had trouble processing what I was saying. She looked furious. But before we could argue more, my mother-in-law Lucia pulled me away from her. "Get away from her," she shouted while she then began checking Valeria's face. Alejandro, who had remained silent during his sister's previous tantrum, now joined his mother and began worrying about his sister. Both of them were suddenly full of concern for her while she started to cry loudly, lamenting how disrespectful I was and how no one had ever struck her before. Perhaps that was the problem. My father-in-law Don Javier, visibly alarmed, ran to get ice for her face as if I had caused irreparable damage to his daughter. The way they were reacting was almost surreal. It was as if Valeria had been shot or a grenade had exploded in her face. My strike had been hard, but not that hard. All the melodrama was overwhelming. Suddenly my husband Alejandro turned against me. "You had no right to strike my sister," he shouted. "All of this is your fault. The only thing you had to do was apologize and keep your mouth shut." Trying to defend myself, I said, "We were dancing. Your sister came up behind me and I did not see her. I spilled wine on her dress. It was an accident. I apologized over and over, but what justified her striking me in the first place?" At this point I was determined to defend myself because everyone was against me. Before Alejandro could respond, Valeria restarted her rant and answered me. "How dare you strike me? Do you even know who you are messing with? I am going to sue you for assault. You are going to pay for this, remember that." Then she turned toward Alejandro, shouting at him too. "What a shame. How can you not control your wife? She has no right to say anything to me after what she did." Without waiting for anyone's response, she stormed off to the bathroom to change with my mother-in-law, following closely to console her like her tail. I remained standing in the center of the room, surrounded by everyone who were whispering and clearly talking about me. Somehow they saw me as the villain in this situation. It was then that Alejandro turned toward me, frustrated and disappointed. "You need to go home," he said. "What?" I asked. Why did it seem very crazy that he would say this? I could barely believe my own husband was telling me to leave, and in front of everyone. "You have done enough," he continued. "You have made a scene and my sister needs to calm down. She cannot do it while you are still here." He added, "You should not have struck her back. In fact, you should not have done anything, no matter what she did to you. You are older than her. You should act with more maturity. Surely she did not do it on purpose when she struck you, but you made things worse by returning the strike. You only escalated the situation unnecessarily." My father-in-law Don Javier intervened, nodding in agreement with Alejandro. "It is better that you leave," he ordered. They were throwing me out of the house. Not only my in-laws but also my own husband. I could not believe he had completely chosen his sister's side, no matter how unfairly I had been treated. I did not see the point of arguing at that moment. I grabbed my things quickly, ordered a ride and left on the way home. On the trip I could only think how everything had gone so wrong for the night to end like this. All I did was defend myself after being humiliated, struck and insulted. Was it really so unforgivable? And why did my husband Alejandro not take a stand for me? I mean, I knew that for my husband his little sister had always come first. For example, when I first met his family, it was at an informal lunch. I remember I was nervous, but during the whole meal my sister-in-law Valeria spent her time and energy interrogating me about every detail of my life, my upbringing, my education, even my job. It did not feel like a polite conversation, but rather like an interrogation. I remember feeling disconcerted by her intrusion. To be clear, both Alejandro's family and mine come from similar socio-economic contexts, and I already worked in the technology area, a field that paid me significantly more than what Alejandro earned in advertising. However, despite all this, she acted as if I was not good enough for her brother. At one point she even said openly that Alejandro was a great catch and that I should be careful about getting serious with anyone. And where was Alejandro during all this? Sitting in silence, of course. Not once did he speak to defend me. He simply let his sister say what she said without challenging her, as if it was not his place to intervene. After that lunch, when we were alone, I told Alejandro how upset I was. I explained it was not fair that his sister treated me that way and more importantly that he should have defended me. To be fair, at that moment he apologized. He told me he had not even noticed how his sister's behavior looked and he excused her, saying she was being protective of him and that he had not heard the whole conversation because he was thinking about something else. He promised that next time he would take my side. But over time his promise was left in the air. He only did it at the beginning. With time he simply let it pass until he returned to his usual self. However, this was different. It had never been physical with me. When I got home I was waiting for Alejandro to return so we could talk. Maybe even argue if necessary, anything to address the chaos of the night. But he never returned. Instead, in the middle of the night I received a voice message from him. He told me his sister was still upset and that he, along with his mother and father, was going to take care of her. As if that was not hard enough, he continued saying that most of his family believed I was wrong. And if his sister went ahead with her threats to sue me for assault and emotional damage, he would have no choice but to support her because she is his family. And he did not stop there. He told me I needed to offer his sister a sincere apology, one that would calm her enough to dissuade her from going ahead with her legal threats. I know many people in my position would have given in. Maybe they would have apologized, swallowed their pride, and admitted something they did not believe, all for the sake of keeping the peace or avoiding more conflict. But I could not. I knew deep in my heart that I had done nothing wrong. Yes, spilling the wine had been an accident, but I had apologized repeatedly. The strike I gave Valeria was not unprovoked. It was a reaction to being humiliated, insulted, and physically struck in front of everyone. If anyone should have apologized, it was her. She had struck me first. She had escalated the situation because she is an entitled person. I knew if she went ahead with a lawsuit she would not have a solid case. Her claims of emotional damage were at best laughable given the circumstances. It was obvious her threats were nothing more than a power move, a way to force me to beg for her forgiveness to calm her wounded ego. But what hurt me the most were not Valeria's actions. It was Alejandro. Throughout this ordeal he showed where his loyalty really lay, with his family, not with me. The fact that he could so easily side with her even after everything I had endured said a lot. Not once did he ask if I was okay. He did not seek me out or offer me any comfort. Instead, he spent the night blaming me for everything, as if I were the only cause of the chaos that night. While listening to his message, I understood something painful but necessary. This was not just a problem with his sister or his family. It was a problem with him, with our relationship. So the next morning when I woke up and my husband still had not come home, I decided to pack my things and leave the house. No notes, no explanations. When Alejandro finally returned home and discovered I had left, I imagine he must have been surprised because my phone started ringing with his calls. I answered and he demanded to know where I was. There was no concern in his voice, no hint of anguish or sadness. He was only angry. He shouted about how he did not expect to come home and find it empty, and he was furious that I had left with all my things. Then, as if to justify his anger, he proudly announced that he had worked very hard to convince his sister to return with him to our house. His great plan was that she would receive an in-person apology from me so the whole situation could be resolved. I could not help but let out a sarcastic laugh, staying calm. I told him I was going to my parents' house and made it clear I had no intention of returning soon since I had a lot to think about. I also told him very clearly that I would not apologize to his sister for something that was not my fault. However, I added that if his sister wanted to apologize to me for her behavior, I would be more than willing to listen. It was not what he expected to hear. He argued that as his wife I could not simply leave like that. He called me rude, inconsiderate, and demanded I return home immediately. But I told him no. I also let him know that if his sister wanted to go ahead with her empty threats to sue me, she was more than welcome to try. He assured me insults, words so ugly and painful that I do not even want to repeat them here. So currently I am at my parents' house. I have told them what happened to me. My dad is completely on my side and has even scolded Alejandro for not defending me. However, my mom thinks I should not have left my husband's side without talking to him first, and that communication is key to resolving our problems. So am I the bad one? Today I looked up the price of the dress online and sent the money to Valeria. I hope this puts an end to her complaints about the dress. I know many of you did not want me to pay her, but I do not want to owe her anything. I ruined her dress and I always had the intention of compensating her. It is what good people do, and it is what I like to do. I even compensated her for the strike. I would also like to clarify some things that have come up repeatedly in the comments. First, as a woman, I know when another woman is deliberately trying to bother me. Valeria has always had this inexplicable need to compete with me from the beginning. Although I have never seen her as